This is At the Public Library, the video source for news and information about the San Francisco Public Library system. This month's show features another library staffer's favorite read and a look at the current exhibits now on display at the main library, as well as listings of upcoming programs and events for children, teens, and adults, all at the public library.
November brings a feast of literary events to the library. November 6th is the Kiriyama Pacific Rim Book Awards, held for the second year in the main library. This year's program at 6 p.m. in the Corrette Auditorium features Lois Ann Yamanaka, author of Blues Hanging, and Alan Brown, author of Audrey Hepburn's Neck and the recipient of the 1996 Kiriyama Prize. Tara Eisen will be reading from her new novel, A Child Out of Alcatraz, on November 12th at 6:30 p.m. in the main library's Latino-Hispanic Community Meeting Room. The North Beach Branch Library welcomes beat writer Janine Pami Vega to read from her work, including Tracking the Serpent, just published by City Lights, on November 13th at 5 p.m. Also on the 13th, Minnesota writer Faith Sullivan will read from her most recent novel, The Empress of One, and discuss her work with Donna Levin in the main library's Latino-Hispanic Community Meeting Room at 6 p.m. Charles Kaiser, author of The Gay Metropolis, 1940 to 1996, presents a slide lecture show evoking the sights, scents, thoughts, and feelings of the past 5 decades of gay life in America, on November 18th at 6:30 p.m. in the main library's Latino-Hispanic Community Meeting Room. And these are just some of the library literary events for the month of November.
Alvaro, what are you reading?
Right now I'm reading this book called The Tramp Steamers, Last Port of Call. This book was written by a world-renowned Colombian writer. His name is Alvaro Mutis. He's probably the best Colombian writer after Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He has received many international awards and has written extensively both poetry and prose. He started writing novels around 1960, and he created this character, sort of an archetypical character that goes to unpredictable places and is always confronted with different situations and dreams and hallucinations and a lot of reflections. His name is Macro, and this character appears in most of his novels as a protagonist or somewhat related to him. If anybody's interested in reading these books, which I highly recommend, we have them in the library in translation. I would recommend to start by reading this one that is called Macro, 3 Novelas, and it's gotten very good reviews. And then we have the next volume, which is called The Adventures of Macro, 4 Novelas. So this is, I think, is a very important author from Latin America that we all should read.
Our look at exhibits now on display in the main library begins with a stop at the 6th floor Skylight Gallery, where the Silver Anniversary exhibition of the Hand Bookbinders of California is running now through December 28th. The exhibition features more than 50 examples of the binders' art, from traditional book forms to contemporary experimental efforts. The Hand Bookbinders of California has sponsored exhibitions of members' work since the late 70s. For many years, the exhibits were displayed in the front windows of John Hal Books near Union Square until this famous shop closed its doors. Since then, the exhibition has appeared at the Palace of the Legion of Honor, Mills College, Stanford University's Green Library, and other venues, until finally being welcomed home by the San Francisco Public Library. This will be the 5th year that the library has been the site for the exhibition. Moving on to the 4th floor of the main finds Luminosity, Works on Paper by Linda Watson. Bay Area contemporary artist Linda Watson uses a variety of watercolor techniques to create dreamy, abstract landscapes in a neo-romantic style. The Watson Show runs through the end of November. Now through December 4th in the James C. Hormel Gay and Lesbian Center on the 3rd floor, the historical exhibit Founding a Dynasty, Jose Sarria, the Black Cat, and the San Francisco Imperial Court System features costumes, photographs, and court memorabilia from the 1960s to the present. The exhibit, curated by the Gay and Lesbian Historical Society of Northern California, is part of the Society's Preserving Our Queer Culture project. And our last stop on our main library exhibits tour brings us to the Jewett Gallery on the lower level for one last look at Brave Little Girls, a unique traveling exhibition of children's books and illustrations from the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. Fictional as well as real heroines from diverse cultures and backgrounds are celebrated for their traits of courage, accomplishment, and willingness to take risks. This colorful exhibit features original illustrations from a variety of books, old and new, that feature brave little girls. The exhibit runs through the end of November, and an accompanying exhibit of illustrations and books that represent the Bay Area's diversity and features the work of local authors and artists can be found on display outside the Children's Center on the 2nd floor.
In addition to exhibits and displays, Brave Little Girls is a great series of programs and activities taking place throughout the San Francisco library system. Here's a look at some of the Brave Little Girls programs that will be presented during the month of November. The Liberty Sisters present American History, Where Were the Women? In story and song on Saturday, November 1st at 4 p.m. at the Potrero branch, and at the Anza branch on Friday, November 14th at 3 p.m. They'll also be at the Portola branch on Saturday, November 15th at 2 p.m. The Bernal Heights branch welcomes Susan Pena and her family to sing participatory songs about brave little girls on Wednesday, November 5th at 7:30 p.m. They'll also be at the Ingleside branch on Saturday, November 15th at 3 p.m. and the Ortega branch on Wednesday, November 12th at 7 p.m. Karen McKee brings her handmade dolls that represent the African American experience and tells their heroic stories, all at the Chinatown branch on Tuesday, November 18th at 4 p.m. Come to the Excelsior branch on Thursday, November 6th at 3 p.m. for stories of heroines around the world with Sandra McLeese. She'll also be at the Glen Park branch on Saturday, November 22nd at 2 p.m. when she'll talk about famous American women, and with the same program on November 22nd at 4 p.m. at the Park branch. Joan Sutton tells stories of brave girls at the Presidio branch at 11 a.m. on November 13th. Dynamic storyteller Diane Ferlat tells tales of brave girls, clever girls, strong girls at the main library in the Children's Center on Saturday, November 1st at 2 p.m. Also at the main library on Saturday, November 8th at 2 p.m. will be illustrator Carmen Lomas Garza, who will conduct a workshop on how to make traditional Mexican papel picado, paper cuts. Nationally known recording artists Kathy Fink and Marcy Markser celebrate women and girls in music and song on Saturday, November 15th in the main library's Corrette Auditorium at 2 p.m. And for a few programs for teens and adults, check out Cultural Odyssey, Rhodessa Jones and the Medea Project present a theatrical homage to brave young women on Thursday, November 13th at 7 p.m. in the main library's Corrette Auditorium. Also on Saturday, November 8th, Quotidian Courage. Young women talk about their daily struggles. Nell Bernstein, editor of Yo! Youth Outlook, presides over a panel of teenage girls who talk about courage and life in the main library's Corrette Auditorium at 1 p.m. Finally, the Northern California chapter of the National Museum of Women in the Arts will present Brave Art, Seeing and Doing, Art by Women, Art by You. The program for children 6 years and older will demonstrate how artists illustrate their life experiences in children's books, and will be followed by a hands-on art project. Space is limited. Please call the branch for reservations. Here's a listing of when Brave Art will be at your branch library. The Sunset Branch begins the November series on Saturday, November 1st at 3 p.m. On November 4th, it moves to the Bernal Heights branch at 3:30 p.m. On Thursday, November 6th, it'll be at 4 p.m. at the Bayview Wadden branch. The Parkside branch on Friday, November 7th at 4 p.m., followed by the Potrero branch on Saturday, November 8th, also at 4 p.m. The Richmond branch on Thursday, November 13th at 4 p.m., and the Visitation Valley branch on Friday, November 14th at 3:30 p.m. Noe Valley Sally Brunn on Tuesday, November 18th at 4 p.m. North Beach on Wednesday, November 19th at 2 p.m. And finally, the Golden Gate Valley branch on Tuesday, November 25th at 3 p.m. Here's a look at one Brave Little Girls event which took place in October. This is Project Bandaloop, performing an incredible aerial dance down the side of the main library.
Another great event that took place earlier this fall outside the main library was a public celebration of free speech to mark Banned Books Week. Local authors, library staff, and community members read selections from works ranging from R.L. Stine's Goosebumps series to Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. All the selections that were read were chosen from books that have been challenged or banned in American schools, school libraries, or public libraries.
Today you will hear excerpts of several dozen books that have been challenged or banned. Books are often challenged with the intention of protecting someone, frequently children. Sex, profanity, violence, and racism are the primary targets of recent censorship efforts. While individuals may restrict what they or their children read, when they call on government or public agencies to prevent others from reading or seeing that material, they are opposing a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment. That is, that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds that idea itself offensive or disagreeable. We mark Banned Books Week to stress the importance of ensuring the availability of unorthodox or unpopular viewpoints to all who wish to read them.
The Banned Books Week celebration was organized by Laura Lent, the library's programs and exhibits manager, and was sponsored by the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. Howard Junker, editor of Zizava magazine, hosted the readings and was pleased to be a part of this successful program and the enthusiastic lunchtime crowd.
This is a good location. Lots of people pass by. Lots of people come to the library every day. So everybody who uses a library is involved in the fight against censorship and a fight against banned books. So we had a natural audience, so we just began to tap it. This was just a gesture really on our part. I like it particularly because it was directed right in front of City Hall. And it's governments too that not in our country particularly, but in other countries, threaten freedom of expression, the rights to read, freedom of access to information. So we're delighted to make this small gesture in favor of freedom.
Local author Donna Levin chose to read a selection from that all-time favorite banned book, Catcher in the Rye.
This is a scenes late in the book, which Holden Caulfield is on a date. He's on a date at a Broadway play with another young woman. At the end of the first act, we went out with all the other jerks for a cigarette. What a deal that was. You never saw so many phonies in all your life. Everybody smoking their ears off and talking about the play so that everybody could hear and know how sharp they were. Some dopey movie actor was standing near us having a cigarette. I don't know his name, but he always plays the part of a guy in a war movie that gets yellow before it's time to go over the top. He was with some gorgeous blonde, and the two of them were trying to be very blasé and all, like as if he didn't even know people were looking at him. Modest as hell. I got a big bang out of it. Old Sally didn't talk much, except to rave about the lunts because she was busy rubbering and being charming. Then all of a sudden she saw some jerk she knew on the other side of the lobby. Some guy in one of those very dark gray flannel suits and one of those checkered vests. Strictly Ivy League. Big deal. He was standing next to the wall, smoking himself to death and looking bored as hell. Old Sally kept saying, I know that boy from somewhere. She always knew somebody. Any place she went, or thought she did. She kept saying that till I got bored as hell, and I said to her, why don't you go on over and give him a big soul kiss if you know him? He'll enjoy it. She got sore when I said that. Finally, though, the jerk noticed her and came over and said hello. You'd have thought they hadn't seen each other in 20 years. You'd have thought they'd taken baths in the same bathtub or something when they were little kids. Old Buddy Ruse. It was nauseating. The funny part was they probably met each other just once at some phony party. Finally, when they were all done slobbering around, old Sally introduced us. His name was George something, I don't even remember, and he went to Andover. Big, big deal. You should have seen him when old Sally asked him how he liked the play. He was the kind of phony that have to give themselves room when they answer somebody's question. He stepped back and stepped right on the lady's foot behind him. He probably broke every toe in her body. He said the play itself was no masterpiece, but that the Lunts, of course, were absolute angels. Angels, for Christ's sake. Angels. That killed me. Then he and old Sally started talking about a lot of people they both knew. It was the phoniest conversation you ever heard in your life. They both kept thinking of places as fast as they could. Then they'd think of somebody that lived there and mention their name. I was all set to puke when it was time to go sit down again. I really was. And then when the next act was over, they continued their goddamn boring conversation. They kept thinking of more places and more names of people that lived there. The worst part was the jerk had one of those very phony Ivy League voices, one of those tired, snobby voices. He sounded just like a girl. He didn't hesitate to horn in on my date, though, the bastard. I even thought for a minute that he was going to get in the goddamn cab with us when the show was over, because he walked about 2 blocks with us, but he said he had to meet a bunch of phonies for cocktails. I could see them all sitting around in some bar with their goddamn checkered vests, criticizing shows and books and women in those tired, snobby voices. They kill me, those guys.
Why did I come out here today? Well, first of all, I met Laura at a party a while back, and she said, and we started talking, and I started talking about the library and how I go down there, and actually had a couple of jokes in my stand-up act about libraries and America's inability to continue to support them. I forgot the joke about what it's going to be like in a car 20 years from now, and when the kid looks out the window and asks you, what is that boarded-up building, Mom? And, well, that used to be a library. Come on, we're going to the video rental store. And so she had seen that joke in my act, or a variation of that joke, and asked me to come down. I come from, my brother's a journalist, so although I grew up in a blue-collar mill town and was probably destined to a regular blue-collar mill town mook lifestyle, my brother was a writer, formerly with the Oakland Tribune and San Jose Mercury, later the Philadelphia Inquirer, and now he's a writer for Time and a novelist. And so I've sort of got really hip to literature, and I've traveled behind the Orange Curtain in Orange County. So. And I realized what people really want. Well, not what all people really want, but what some people want to do with books and literature and information. So, oddly enough, I read from a book of abstinence today, and I thought, far be it from me to tell women to abstain from sex, but that's the beauty of it. You can not necessarily agree with the thing that there's an attempt to ban, and you can still not want it banned. So I think it was a great event, and I was happy to be part of it.
All of the books that were read from at the Banned Books program are available through the San Francisco Public Library.
Books, check them out. Books, check them out. Pick up a book. You got a fantasy, imagination can take you to where you want to be. Are you curious? How can you find out? Books, check them out. Books, check them out. Read about stars and cars, play electric guitars, or cops that work hard, patrolling the boulevard, the heavyweight champ and his craziest bout. Books, check them out. Books, check them out. At your library.
For your information, Mission Branch Library, the oldest branch in the library system, is undergoing a seismic upgrade and a reorganization of space to provide better access for patrons. In addition, a computer lab will be added to the main floor, and the existing 24th Street entrance will be relocated to Bartlett Street. The branch library is being relocated to a temporary site at 2601 Mission Street on the 5th floor. That's the Bayview Tower at 22nd Street, during the construction period. The Mission Branch is now open Mondays from 1 to 9 p.m., Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., Thursdays 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Fridays 1 to 6 p.m., Saturdays 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Sundays from 1 to 5 p.m. Renovations of the library will be completed, and the branch is slated to reopen in late spring of 1999. The library is offering free workshops about obtaining American citizenship. Sponsored by Centro Legal de la Raza, the citizenship workshops are on the first Saturday of the month from 11:30 a.m. to 1 in the afternoon at the Excelsior branch, and every fourth Saturday in the main library's Latino-Hispanic Community Meeting Room from 10 to 11:30 a.m. All the workshops are conducted in Spanish and English. The San Francisco Public Library Full Commission meets the first Tuesday of every month at 5:30 p.m. The Finance, Operations, and Building Committee meets on the third Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. And the Planning and Policy Committee meets the third Thursday of the month at 4:30 p.m. All Library Commission meetings are now being held in the Corrette Auditorium on the lower level of the main library. If you've got some legal questions, the Volunteer Legal Services Program of the San Francisco Bar Association offers a free legal advice and referral clinic the second Saturday of each month in the main library's Latino-Hispanic Community Meeting Room at 10 a.m. And finally, the library system will be closed in honor of Veterans Day on Tuesday, November 11th, and will also be closed for 2 days, November 27th and 28th, in observance of Thanksgiving. And that's FYI.
Friends for Life volunteers bring the riches of the San Francisco Public Library to people who can no longer visit the library themselves. Friends for Life volunteers provide a link between the San Francisco Public Library and people with AIDS or HIV disease. If you would like to be a Friends for Life volunteer, or you are in need of the services Friends for Life provides, call 557-4352 for more information.
Thanks for watching At the Public Library here on City Watch Cable Channel 54. You can catch At the Public Library Monday mornings from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. and from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Friday evenings from 8 to 9 p.m. and Saturdays from 12 noon to 1 p.m. See you next time.